Good morning. Today, day 8 of the Indie Travel Project. Today's prompt is love learning, which is also a BootsnAll core value. So I'm pumped about today's prompt. Yeah, love learning. I was thinking about loving learning and indie travel, and my first thought was that if you love learning, you probably love indie travel. I suppose it's possible that you can not travel and still love learning. Though I think you're missing out in a big part of learning by not experiencing the learning, because there's book learning, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and then there's the I'm doing it learning, I'm experiencing it learning. So, but then the other part of this love learning and indie travel is that I think if you love indie travel, you probably have to love learning, because that's a huge component of indie travel, is to stretch yourself, put yourself many times in unfamiliar circumstances that you are forced to learn. So that's my first thought on it. I probably didn't come up with this, but I know I've been thinking this for probably at least a decade. And my thought is that the best way to get an education is to do indie travel, in my mind. It's perhaps the best, because it's not just book learning, though, because indie travel does afford you oftentimes a lot of time to read, but the chance to actually experience. And I know my indie travel experiences I feel like, educated me and opened my eyes to just different ways of thinking. Of course, the more I travel, the more I realize I just don't know jack squat. So the thing in the past year that highlights my love for learning and is related to indie travel is my wife and I, one of our core values, it's not only BootsnAll's core value, love learning, but one of our family's core values is loving learning as well. So that's one that actually overlines. So I make an effort to continually educate myself and step out of my comfort zone. One of the things, I'm involved with an organization called EO. It's called Entrepreneurs Organization, and there was a conference back at the end of October, just a few weeks ago. It was called EO Alchemy in Los Angeles, and I go to one or two of these per year, and there's kind of like mini TED Talks. It's not TED, but it's like TED Talks, but it's based around entrepreneurship and related topics. And I actually brought Brandy, my wife, this year, who's also participating in the Indie Travel Project. I'll go ahead and link to her entries in today. But to me, it was a wonderful, wonderful conference. I got to meet old friends and new friends in the entrepreneurial community inside of EO, and also I think to hear other people's stories about how they're succeeding, how they're in some cases how they're failing, and how they're going for it in life. And it really feeds my sense of learning, and I learned a bunch of different things that I'm starting to implement into my life. So that's my story from the past year. Indie travel and learning go hand in hand. Best way to educate yourself, in my opinion, is through indie travel. And of course, my experience from the past year was going to this conference with my wife. It was a great way for us to share a loving learning together. So cheers, indie travel, love learning, looking forward to seeing everybody else's entry today.